Show up tonight, huh? We're here. Hope you guys are watching, that you've had some patience with us. As you can see, we are recording from a new location. We are at a place called Plaza de Armas, which happens to be right next to the Spanish Governor's Palace, which happens to be right behind City Hall, which is currently under renovations. And one day we will all be back there as a city council. I'm going to say good evening to everyone. As usual, I'm going to give you the shout outs. I see Catherine Rocha is joining us. Catherine, thanks for being here with us. It might just be you, me, and my team tonight. Just kidding. We'll have Justin Rodriguez with us as well. So hopefully folks will still join and haven't been discouraged that we've been on a little bit late. As Commissioner Rodriguez says, the digital divide is real. We've had some problems with the Wi-Fi here downtown. So I will just give you a rundown of what we're going to hear today. Obviously, our big star will be Commissioner Justin Rodriguez joining us in just a few minutes. We'll be talking about coronavirus recovery, but it's really difficult to have any conversation today with ignoring what's happening around us. So we'll also be talking about the protests that we've been seeing lately in San Antonio and across the nation. We'll also be talking about our thoughts and positions on that, and I look forward to going into that discussion. All right, we've got more members joining us, more members of the Facebook and District 7 community joining us. We've got Brandy, how are you? Don Rios from Culebra Park, and Pauline Howard. Fernando Rocha, thanks a lot for watching us. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The first item that we have today is I'd like to start with a moment of silent reflection, and this is to honor the lives of Mr. George Floyd, Mr. Ahmaud Arbery, Ms. Breonna Taylor, and all those who have unfortunately and tragically lost their lives at the hands of those whom we have trusted to protect us. So we'll take a moment of silence now. Thank you all for that. So not long ago, there were some folks walking downtown, demonstrating and protesting against the death, the murder of Mr. George Floyd, and this has been going on for a few days. And demonstrating, there's been a lot of controversy about whether or not that's healthy or not. I absolutely think going out and speaking is healthy, and it's a wonderful way to express how we feel about issues going on in our community and beyond. As you know, I've championed public participation and public engagement here at City Council, and along those lines, I do have an update to share with you, and that is that starting today, actually this happened earlier today, we will be reintroducing public comment, if formerly it was called Citizens to be Heard, here at the City of San Antonio. This used to happen on Wednesday nights before a big council meeting, or before a regular council meetings. Any member of the public could come sign up before 6 p.m. and speak his or her 3 minutes to the council members. Given coronavirus and the instructions to stay at home, we had to cancel that for the time being, but we have reintroduced it, except this time you don't even have to come downtown. You can do it from your own phone. You can also submit email. Today was the first time we tried it. It wasn't perfect, I will say. We are still figuring out some of the glitches. But for those of you who do want to share your comments regarding issues going on in the city or actions being taken by City Council, this is your opportunity to do that. Of course, you can also speak to your council member's office directly. So we'll be doing it again next week. That'll be on June 10th. The instructions are there. You do have to submit before the meeting begins, a few hours before the meeting begins. But we did receive some comments today regarding how our police force is behaving, some recommendations that people gave us for improving relationships between the police force and the community. So we look forward to receiving your comments. As always, you can also contact your district council office directly. I have another update, and that has to do with Share the Streets. We talked about it last week just a little bit. What you see here is Cincinnati Avenue, and I'll talk to Commissioner Rodriguez about this as well. Cincinnati is not just a city in Ohio. It is a street in District 7, San Antonio, and it connects St. Mary's University to Woodlawn Lake. It's a beautiful street. It will be closed for through traffic beginning June 8th. It will go on for 4 weeks. It's an experiment, and it will be open to bicycles, rollerbladers, skateboarders, people walking, wheelchairs, tricycles, whatever you've got with wheels, as long as it's not motorized. Come on and ride it. And it won't just be on a Sunday like Ciclovia. It is going to be every day. Now, again, people who live there will be able to come in and out, so we will be a little bit careful about that. But it is called Share the Streets. We're going to try it out. We are the first pilot in the city of San Antonio to do this. So I'm going to jump onto our to welcome Commissioner Rodriguez, and as we're bringing him on, I want to say hi to Dr. Ochoa, who's joined us. Thank you, Lisa, for being with us. Lily Casura. Lily, thank you for joining me, not leaving me alone or hanging during these Facebook Lives. Appreciate it. And someone you'll see on the thread, her name is Salsa Jennifer Benavides. Actually, her name is not Salsa, but her name is Jennifer Benavides, and we went to high school together. And she is I'm so excited. She's like a huge salsa star. She was in a movie and a dance scene. You'll have to remind me which one it was. Jen, if you want to post it in the comments for people to go check out your scene. And a graduate of Jefferson High School. All right, we've got Commissioner Rodriguez with us. Commissioner, where are you?
I am in the heart of Precinct 2, District 7. I'm in my backyard. I mean, that's I got home from a long day, and I am just here in my backyard. We have 3 kids, and with everybody working from home, oftentimes I get the outside office. So I'm on my back patio, and I'm honored to be joining you, Councilwoman. It's great to see you, and thank you for doing this. I mean, I know you've done a great job as District 7 council person since you've been there, and I just want to make sure that we continue to work together. I know we've partnered on a number of projects already, and thanks for having me on your show tonight. Thank you for the wine and cheese in the green room too while I was waiting.
That's right. We had to have the commissioner in a waiting room before we brought him in, and it had all kinds of delicacies in there. So thanks for your patience.
Absolutely.
So let's see. I have some questions for you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
I like to say when I talk about Justin that I have yet to come across someone who does not like Justin Rodriguez, because in District 7, I've had to comb the district block walking, right? And so I say, I can't find anyone who doesn't like him. And I have tried.
They are out there, Councilwoman, believe me, and they may be chiming in here on the comments shortly. Listen, you're always so kind when you say that, but we can't make everybody happy, and you've been a great, I think, example of trying to do the right thing, and irrespective of that, there's going to be people that don't agree at times. But I think it's important at the same time to get along with folks and try and build consensus. And so I think that's what I've always tried to make the common thread throughout my years of service here in our West Side and in San Antonio.
So for those of you watching, A, thank you for watching. But B, this is something that elected officials do, I've learned, and I think I read it also in Julian Castro's books, is that you call each other by your title, even though you're just, I'm John and you're just Justin, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And then we throw these flowers at each other about all the wonderful work we've done. it's a nice practice, and it is genuine and sincere. I do admire your work, Commissioner, but I do think it's a little funny that we do
Yeah,
that.
it is, and I think what it is, I mean, I think it's just a matter of showing respect. I mean, I tell people too, hey, they say, hey, Commissioner, just call me Justin. I know you do the same thing. I'm just Ana. But you're right. It's kind of like the initial greeting is always like, hey, Councilwoman, how are you? And then you get onto the business and
Right.
yeah, but yeah, I think for some reason we just can't get away from that. We just always revert back to the
Mutual
formal title.
admiration.
Yeah, the formal titles.
Yeah.
But no, I prefer being called just Justin. It's fine. So.
All right. Well, Justin, I always feel like I'm disrespecting you by saying that, but I do have some questions for you, and I
Okay.
believe my staff sent them to you in advance. So my people sent them to your people, as they say.
Right.
Tell us, this one is actually me just being curious. How is serving on county commissioners court different from serving on city council? I know you loved your time here on the council, and you
I
served
did. Yeah.
some of the same community, but can you give us some insight into what's different?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are a lot of similarities. We have common constituencies, so that's kind of nice. We don't deal with at the county level as much as the neighborhood issues that you see every day. I know as you started the show, you talked about the Cincinnati project. Obviously, you have code compliance issues. You got the bread and butter, right? Which is what I loved about city council is, it's the speed humps and the stray dogs and those issues that you have to be responsive to.
We can always
And
be
we,
volunteers. We can always.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll come hang out then and help you out. But I think what we refer to often as those front door issues. The county's a little bit different, and in that we've got responsibility not just for some of those projects in the unincorporated areas. So there's parts of, as you know, our community that don't live in the city of San Antonio. They're neither in Leon Valley or Balcones Heights, but they are in those unincorporated areas. So for those areas, we are the basic service provider for those neighborhoods. That means infrastructure. It means in some cases pickup of stray dogs and garbage. But at the county level, we're also charged with, I guess, more regional infrastructure projects. And you and I have worked together on flood control projects. So, there's some similarities in that regard. What's different is that we've got this whole other system that has a $450 million budget called the University Health System that essentially is the Bexar County Hospital District. It operates as University Health System or UHS. So healthcare, and I know you're a big public health advocate. We're obviously going through some unprecedented times in terms of public health issues. So the UHS system, I think, adds another level of involvement for me to make sure that people are taken care of, not just in terms of workforce development and infrastructure, but also, I think wholly that they're not just physical health, but mental health. I mean, the Center for Healthcare Services is another example of where the county has its hands in healthcare holistically. So there's some similarities, but then there's those differences. And I've always felt like the local level. I enjoyed my time, as you know. I went from the state, the city council to the state legislature, which I really, really enjoyed. But I think my heart is in local service, serving at the city and the county level, where you really are at the closest you can be to your constituents. And so to me, that's where my heart is. And I've enjoyed being back for this. I guess it's been about 15 months now since I've been back.
Yeah, time flies. And
Yeah.
we are very glad to have you. It's great to have someone we can reach out to at Commissioner's Court. So I have here something about, can you tell us a little bit about what the Commissioner's Court's been doing regarding COVID-19 to support small businesses? I noticed on Facebook delivering some PPE, but tell us about, we're going through our
Sure.
in terms of what we do with our federal dollars. So can you tell us a little bit about what the county did?
Yeah, so I mean, just for the viewers, both the city and the county received uh, stimulus dollars through the CARES Act. Interestingly, because I get the people that call with the assumption that since the county is bigger, somehow we got more dollars. Well, the reality is we got about 80 million directly from the federal government. I think the city got about 270 million, and they do that based on a formula that is per capita, so based on population. If you take out the city of San Antonio, overall, obviously our region is a little over 2 million people, but if you take out the city of San Antonio, where you serve, that's about 1.5 million. So our population is 500,000 or 600,000. Again, according to those formulas. So we have over the last few weeks been deliberating about the best approach for using those dollars. We know that they're one-time dollars, right? We need to make sure and use them wisely. We also know that they are dollars, at least as they're currently written, that have to be expended by 12/31 of 2020, which is a challenge. It's great to have the money, but you also have to do it in a meaningful way. In our case, in about 6 months, and so we initially had a conversation and created buckets of priorities based on community input and our deliberations. About 50% of the dollars that we have, we are planning to put into workforce development and job training, upskilling, partnering with organizations like Alamo Colleges, Project Quest, Workforce Solution Alamo, because we know that unemployment is at an all-time high. I think the recent figure was about 13% locally, so thousands of people out of jobs here. The challenge is we want to get them trained and hopefully placed in jobs that pay well, but we also know that during the training, you can't just take time off or go from unemployment to training. You need to get some kind of stipend. So we're working, I know as you guys are, on providing a stipend for those who go through the workforce training program. We're hopeful that by the end of June, we'll have that program in place. So that's been a huge priority. You mentioned a minute ago the small business support.
Right.
The county, even before we got the COVID dollars, we put about $5 million into a small business loan program, zero interest, partnered with Lift Fund. Way back in March, and those dollars went out in the next, I think, probably in 2 weeks. So this week we actually re-upped that, and we're putting 6.5 million into a program that is purely grants, no loans. We'll be partnering with Lyft on the west side in our precinct. We'll also be using the West Side Development Corporation to help with outreach to local businesses. And so small businesses can apply for those starting next week. For up to $10,000 for grants. And it's not money they have to pay back. It's purely grant money. Hopefully they will utilize it to, if they're behind in rent maybe, or to payroll, keep folks employed, hopefully. So that's some of the things we've been doing, in particular with respect to small business. This morning, as you saw, I was out at the Precinct 2 Constable's office on Bandera and Gilbo in District 7. We provided personal protective equipment to small businesses as well. I think that you and I both worked on the working groups to kind of triage the pandemic. And I think, I don't want to speak for you, but at least in my view, the reopening phase was a little bit too swift. But I think what we're doing, as the governor's kind of mentioned, he's got these phases and businesses are reopening. At the very least, what we can do is we can provide these businesses with supplies so that their employees feel safe coming back, and customers feel safe. So we gave out plexiglass shields to businesses who have kind of customer-facing storefronts, masks, gloves, sanitizer. So yeah, we had several hundred small business owners come through this morning. And so those have been some of the major priorities. We also have to do something with social services, as you know, and affordable housing. That's a big, I served on the work group that dealt with shelter and food security. Those issues are not going away. And in fact, we knew there were issues before, and now they've just been exacerbated by this pandemic. And we've got to figure out a way to address those, not just over the next few months and weeks, but for the long term as well.
Wow, that's a lot of information. I have like all these questions about the grant.
I was rambling. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. I'm gonna give people who are watching us an opportunity to submit any questions that they have in the chat stream. While you guys are doing that, I have to do a few more shout outs. Commissioner is just part of the deal here when you're on
Of course. No.
Live. So
Yeah.
I've got Dawn, who's Dawn, you watched us last week too, and I think the week before. So thank you for being a revisiting viewer. We've got Tim, and I'm sorry I couldn't read this. Tim, thank you for joining us. And I had also my cousin, Tony Cabrera, my cousin and veteran Tony Cabrera is on, who also lives in District 7, not too far from us. So thanks for joining us. Javier Paredes, saludos to you as well. And I'm also supposed to ask you to share the video, not just you, Javier, but everyone who's watching it. If you have friends who want to share. My comadre Via Esquivel, how are you? How's the ahijada doing? And of course, hello to Eloisa Portillo Morales, who used to work here at the city, but now she's a big-time environmental climate change consultant with a big national organization, and I'm trying to get her to apply for one of our boards and commissions here. So would love to have you on there. Okay, it looks like nobody has any questions. That's wonderful.
That's great. I covered it all. That's why. You know, I will say this, you know, Councilwoman, and I hope you share in this. One of the things that has been, at least in my time in public service, you know, I've never seen the city and county working so collaboratively as we have. And you and I were working together before this anyway, which has been great. But to see the mayor and the county judge and the efforts putting the work group together that included co-chairs, council member, commissioner, you know, I hope we continue in that spirit, even post COVID-19, because we know we're going to get past this. But I think we get so much more done when we collaborate. We can leverage dollars, and you know, it's been very, very, you know, I think fruitful to see those relationships and to see the governance of the two different levels of government working together. Because I will tell you, it is not the same in other large urban communities in Texas. So we're a little bit blessed, you know, I think blessed, and I don't want to take it for granted. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Sorry, I'm getting a question from my here. No, but you make a tremendous point, and I do want to say we have had the benefit of working together regarding Bandera Road, a lot of local issues. I know some of the residents still contact you. They've got your phone number, and you send those right over to our office. It's great to have that relationship. I think it's not just good for you and me in our roles, but I'd say it's also great for the residents too, because we share that institutional knowledge.
Absolutely, yeah.
A note from my technical team: I'm getting a battery notification on this. Your Mac will sleep soon. All right.
Me or you?
Me.
Oh, okay. How do you know that about my Mac? Yeah.
No subtle way for me to say it without.
Yeah.
Given that my face is on the screen. Last week. Okay, I'm supposed to ask you about. Last week we had a joint city and council. City council and commissioners meeting. And I was talking about how, you know, we're going to make all these great strides, but we don't have anything for public health in that. And the judge seemed to be receptive, and you alluded to, or you explicitly talked about the tools that the county has. So I just wanted to get some more thoughts on the possibilities of collaboration between the city and the county.
Yeah, no, I think it's, and I do recall you mentioning that. I thought it was a great point you made in that joint meeting. Look, I think, you know, a lot of what we've been doing over the past few weeks and months has been a kind of triage in response to what's occurred globally, not just here locally. So I think, you know, as we transition at some point into the resilience phase, that is, how do we make our community stronger from this? What do we learn from it? How do we prevent as much as possible some of the tragic deaths that have occurred because of the pandemic. That's I think the big piece is the public health piece that you reference. We have the resources of the university health system, the Center for Healthcare Services I mentioned earlier. So I think that there is between those resources and the great job your Metro Health has been doing, and Dr. Emmerich over there, there is a way that, look, I know the mayor mentioned yesterday that the city's now having to pivot away from some of the big projects that really some people have said are legacy type projects. And the county is no different. I mean, in part of those discussions, literally, 2 weeks before everything kind of shut down, we were discussing picking up where the city had left off on the Creekway, the Greenway trails.
Right.
250 million. The county was committed to paying for, and so look, I think this, if anything, has caused everyone to hit the reset button, reprioritize. We know that there were longstanding issues in our community with respect to economic segregation and poverty and homelessness. You mentioned, we joked at the beginning about the digital divide. I mean, that is real. These are first world problems here. Yeah, these are first world problems, but the reality is we have communities that have been underserved for generations. So we have to remember that. Like, we can't, people are rushing to get back to some degree of normalcy. Well, we can't go back to that same normalcy. We've got to create a new normal for ourselves. And that has to mean that no one is left behind. We have to make sure those communities that have been ignored are taken care of. And I think your point, it starts and ends with health, right? I mean, if someone is not healthy, how can they provide for their families? How can they lead a good quality of life? Those things are important, and I think oftentimes it's not at the forefront of our conversations as policymakers. And so I applaud you for doing that. I know that is something you're passionate about, and I think certainly from my perspective, the county is a willing partner with you.
That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear it. Now we've got you on record.
Yeah, exactly. Is this being recorded?
I'm gonna do a shout out for the people who are watching, and we're getting some questions regarding the incidents that are going on outside. So, well, first let me do my shout outs. Teno Villarreal is out there. He's got some questions. We should be getting to you soon. We also have we have Gabe asking about assisting people who need help with rent and mortgage. Gabe, I love answering that question because we have an answer for it, or getting the question because we have an answer for it. The city has set aside $25 million for rental assistance. We are going to set aside another $25 million tomorrow. And you can call 311 to get that assistance. Now, if you do not live within the boundaries of the city of San Antonio, I am going to bounce that question over to the commissioner if people need rental assistance.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a similar fashion, the county has set up a rental assistance program for those that live in the unincorporated areas or in our suburban cities. The ones that we're familiar with, Councilwoman, are, of course, Leon Valley and Balcones Heights that kind of are abut District 7, but there's, a couple dozen all over the city, or all over the county, excuse me. So we put an initial $4 million into our rental assistance program. We've committed an additional amount with the COVID dollars. The initial $4 million was out of our general fund and from our Housing Finance Corporation. So there is rental assistance. I think we need to remind folks, particularly those who are struggling to make rent, who may be facing an eviction, those dollars are still available. Even if you have been notified of a court date for an eviction in our JP courts, you still have the opportunity to reach out to either the city or the county. Just go to our respective websites and you can get rental assistance to help you in that eviction process.
Okay. Before we go on to the protest, I know we were only scheduled to be here for a little bit, but la plática está buena, or the conversation is very good, right? So
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Right. you're talking about rental assistance, and you know what most of us got in the mail yesterday, right?
Yeah, the love letter from the appraiser, the chief appraiser. Yeah.
Right. So we're receiving our property tax assessments, which, by the way, the truth is, just to have a home and own a home is a blessing. So I'm not gonna complain about that. But you recently held a property tax info session.
I did, yeah.
Tell us about that. If people missed it, where can they see it?
Sure. So, and kudos to you. I know you've held these in the past as well. Of course, in this environment, we had to do ours as a Facebook Live, a Zoom call. We had Albert Udesta, the tax assessor collector, on the call with us. We had a couple of gentlemen from SWBC who are in their ad valorem tax office who deal with protests. So it was an informational session. I think what I should clarify at the outset is, because there's always confusion about this, neither myself or the councilwoman sends out that appraisal notice to you guys. Okay, so that comes from the chief appraiser, what's called BCAD, the Bexar County Appraisal District. They have a separate office. It's called Bexar County, but it's not part of Bexar County government. But let me just say a couple things about that. Number one, several of us at the county level, and maybe even at the city, I'm not sure, but we had asked the governor to freeze appraisals this cycle because of the COVID-19 situation. We did not get a response to that, so it delayed the appraisal process a little bit. That's why typically you get those in early May. They just went out this week. You have 30 days to respond to that. So go to my I'm sorry, not my website, but my Facebook page. We will repost that. It was about an hour discussion on the best way to prepare for your appraisal protest hearing. I understand they're not doing them in person this year, so you'll have to do that either by phone or by email. But what's interesting is this. I like to point this out because the way those are determined is, people ask me all the time, I'm sure you get it, Councilwoman, is why don't you guys just lower taxes, right? So the issue is more complicated than that. If you look on that appraisal notice, you will see an itemized, essentially line item of each of the taxing entities in Bexar County. Bexar County, City of San Antonio, Alamo Colleges, University Health System. As an example, the Bexar County tax rate is set at about 27 cents per $100 valuation on your home. That tax rate is either remained flat or been lowered over the past 26 years by Bexar County. I think the city's probably similar, but yet people are getting these appraisals that are just outrageous, right? So we really need to work on appraisal reform at the legislative level. Of course, the folks in Austin say they blame it all on the local governments, but the reality is it's going to require some reform of appraisals at the legislative level. I know we've got some champions here locally that want to do that in the 2021 session. So look, the at least what we can do, and I know I mentioned Ana's done this before, is arm you with the best information on how to protest. It's important you do that because even the appraisal district will tell you sometimes they just send out kind of this shotgun approach, and they don't necessarily know the value of your property, but they know the surrounding ones, and so it kind of raises everybody's. And so I think number one, make sure you're armed with information. And number two, make sure you've applied for all of your exemptions, homestead exemption, your over 65 exemption, military, if you have the qualified exemption. And so again, go to our Facebook page. We'll repost that, particularly as you get those. And our office is here to help you. I know you are as well on it, to make sure that people have the information they need to respond to those.
Okay, thank you. I'm reading something from my staff. I'm asking my staff to go ahead and post that in the chat right now. Oh, it's not a chat; it's a comments bar or comments box, so that anyone who's watching.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. You can see it. In fact, you can leave our conversation, go watch it now if you want. But we've got more good stuff to talk about.
Don't leave yet.
So,
don't leave yet.
Don't leave. All right, let's talk about what's going on. We talked about health. As you know, almost as we speak, there are protests going on outside.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling my team today that, you know, not that I like to brag about this all the time, but I did go to Harvard and I went to the School of Public Health. And
yeah.
So I'm on this mailing list, right? So they send us stuff. And the dean of the School of Public Health there is a woman named Michelle Williams. She was the head of the epidemiology department, and she focused on intimate partner violence. And anyway, I just admire her tremendously, African-American woman. And she sent us a letter today about what's going on and really the position of public health professionals and public health professors and academia on it. And she made a really bold statement. Others are saying this, and I agree with it. She basically said, look, what we're seeing is institutional racism happening, and racism itself is a public health crisis. It's creating a public health crisis for us. And it's hard to see it that way, right? It's not, I am in no way, shape, or form saying that there is one policeman who does something or one policewoman that does something and that they are a racist person. I think that's a too simplified a way to see it. We just have had a history where these incidents have happened, and it seems like there's almost like it's okay, right? Because they continue to happen again. So I think coming out of COVID-19, and seeing the disparity in the health impacts of that, depending what race you are, and then having this happen, it's really a moment for us to reflect about how we move forward. So I am going to address a question we got. This is from Teno. Teno asks, are you familiar with the 8-count wait campaign? Sorry, someone writes some beautiful cursive on my team here. Campaign, which is a police violence reduction campaign, and how can we implement proposals? Now, I can talk a little bit about that, but Commissioner, I'd also love to hear your thoughts on that. So I'm
yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm somewhat familiar with it. I just started educating myself about the 8 Can't Wait campaign, about de-escalation and essentially the proper police tactics, no chokeholds and things of that nature. Look, I think that we need to. I think it's difficult to have these conversations around race, but they're necessary, and they're necessary because that's the only way we can evolve and learn from each other. And I think anyone that has seen the video, it was essentially a modern day lynching of George Floyd. It's difficult for me as a grown adult to see it. It's harder to explain something like that to the teenagers we have at home. And so, I know that, for my part, I've started reaching out this week to different Black community leaders in San Antonio, because I think we have a lot to learn from each other. And I think our roles are to listen and figure out how we can come to some solutions together. Now, that's going to include some tough conversations with the police force leaders, our chief and our sheriff. One of the things that we have control over at the county in particular is collective bargaining for our sheriffs and our deputies. And that is coming up, I want to say later this year or early next year. So I think, certainly, my role in that process is to make sure that some of these things are addressed. And we've not, largely we've not had issues in San Antonio. We have good men and women. That's the other hard part about this is I think everybody feels like you're pointing fingers or you're painting with a broad stroke. We even get wrapped up into that too, right, Anna? When people talk about those politicians, right? I mean, we're not all the same.
They're talking about
yeah, we're not all the same, and so um, look, I think this has got to be a moment, and you're seeing the frustration and desperation by folks in our community, not the ones that are rioting, but the ones that are peacefully demonstrating their frustration. And again, just like I mentioned, we can't forget about all of the needs when we're past COVID. We can't forget about this moment, because I think that often is the case. I think that's the case. You just kind of turn the page and you move on with your life. But these things keep happening over and over and over again. We've got to lift up our brothers and sisters in the Black community, and the only way we can do that is by reaching out and having these difficult conversations. So yeah, there's no easy solution. I know that even the folks out there who say, look, the majority of police officers are good and want to do the right thing. Well, they have to be part of the solution too, right? And that's what we need from our community. And I have every confidence that San Antonian will rise to that moment and to that challenge.
Oh, those are great words. I agree. I don't think we can move forward if our police force isn't with us. So we want them to be part of the solution. So we're ready to talk about it. And regarding the 8 Can't Wait campaign, I've had someone go do some research. And it turns out that of the 8 recommendations that currently the City of San Antonio's Police Department has 4 of those implemented already. If you want more information, maybe we can email that to you, Thanos, so that you're more familiar with what those 4 recommendations are. I don't have all the information here right now. Let me see. One thing that that will be happening at the city, number one, is the mayor had reconvened some of the committees, the council committees, and public safety was not one of them. However, it now is, so they'll be meeting in the future. And the chairwoman for that committee is my colleague, District 6 Councilwoman Melissa Cabello Haverda. So I think she'll be great at leading that discussion.
Absolutely.
Now, we are a couple years away, I believe, from the next contract, or maybe a little bit sooner, with our collective bargaining contract with police. So I think there's still, time to talk about what that's going to look like. And then another thing that's happening is we have public comment, as I mentioned, so you can share that information. And Councilman Pelaez is hosting something this weekend, a listening session. And, over the past few days, I've talked to friends, colleagues, members of the community about this. And, people have stories about their interactions with law enforcement and moments when they feared for their lives. And the truth is, we only know the stuff that we caught on our social media feeds.
Right.
We only know the stuff that makes it into the big news, but other things happen all the time. And I think we can learn from those too. So as your councilwoman, if you're watching this, I'd welcome any of your commentary into our District 7 inbox. All of that informs, decisions that we take in policy in the future. So there's comments that you want to share. I also host a monthly Coffee with Ana. Well, it used to be called Coffee with Ana because we did it in person, but now we do it virtually. And it's not a big meeting. It's just the constituent and me, and of course, someone from my team will be there. But that's when we get a 15-minute chat. You can tell me what's on your mind. If there's some things you want to share with us about your experiences, happy to do that. Just call our office and we schedule those. So I think we can go ahead and wrap up if we don't have any more questions. We have, my team has given me a ton of recommendations about what we can do to improve community relations in our city, or race relations in our city. And I am on the Public Safety Committee, so I'll be bringing some of these recommendations forward. And of course, as part of the Health Committee, or chairing that's another great opportunity for us to talk about how race impacts health. If you haven't read it, I have an op-ed in the Rivard Report today. Oh, there it is. In fact, can they click and go link it as soon as they finish our
y'all are fancy over there. Jeez. Yeah. Before we go on, I just saw, I think it's Fernando that mentioned that neither of us express support of our law enforcement. I mean, look, I think that you know, maybe because we both feel it's implied, but there are, I think I mentioned, great men and women who put their lives on the line every day for our communities. We've got great folks that work with our neighborhood associations, our safe officers, the sheriff's score unit. You know, by no means, I don't think, are we saying there's a lack of support from myself, at least, for law enforcement. I mean, what we're talking about is a tragedy that should have been prevented, that is preventable with a reform. And I think that's what we're talking about. And we talked about working together with them on those reforms. I think people, know that that shouldn't be happening in any capacity, anywhere, to anyone, particularly young African American people in our community who fear for their life because of incidents like that. So I just wanted to underscore that we have, I think, for years in our public service been supporters. I think, in fact, I think you chaired public safety at one point there at City Council. When I was on City Council, I chaired and worked closely with Chief McManus as the chair of public safety. I worked closely with Sheriff Salazar. So I don't want that to be misinterpreted. I just think that we know there's got to be some changes, and changes for the better.
Mm-hmm. Agreed, Commissioner. I think as someone on the council, I tremendously appreciate the work of all the city employees, and we work so much with the safe officers in the community. The truth is, we miss you guys. We miss you. Sean King out over in Bronze Station, and all our other safe officers. I think what the commissioner says is right, is expressing concern about, not concern, but even emotions about what happened to Mr. Floyd and other people in that. That's what we're talking about right now, and we want you to help us we want you to be part of that solution with us. We can't solve it without you. So thank you for the work that you do, and we do need your help too. So I think that kind of wraps us up. And thank you to my cousin Tony, who keeps giving us accolades on the comments related to me. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, Commissioner, for joining us.
Yes.
Tremendously appreciate your time and your insight. All right, guys, don't forget to share the video. That's what my staff keeps telling me. Share the video, and have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.